All right, welcome back, y'all. This is Pure Lunacy, and it's your wonderful host, Priscilla. I have a very good friend of mine, Mr. John Beckwith III. He is a gentleman who is in law enforcement, a first responder, somebody that has been a very close friend of mine for over 15 years now. We won't say how old we are. We're 15 years old right now.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring you on, John, to one, say hello to the Pure Lunacy world, and then also give your perspective and have this discussion. So say hello to everyone, John.
Hello, everyone. I hope y'all are doing fine. And also want to say thank you, Priscilla, for having me on your show today.
Thank you. Um, so, of course, I know you've been paying attention to everything happening in the country, in the world, and it's serious and a much needed discussion on so many different topics. Um, However, I wanted to also have your perspective, not only as a first responder, but a man of color, a black man in America, somebody whose family has had to, establish themselves professionally because of your blackness. So why don't you just give a little bit of that history of your family and who you are, and we'll go from there.
All right, awesome, man. My family, the Beckwith family, we are African American family and owned Golden Gate Funeral Home. My family owns Golden Gate Funeral Home and Beckwith Incorporated, which was started September 15th, 1980, by my grandfather, who came from Louisiana, a good old Creole boy, and my family is very well respected around the nation. And we do a lot of community work, and also we're not only does my family do funeral service work, but most of us are in some aspect of law enforcement.
Yeah.
So I mean, just growing up in it, I was born to do it. If it wasn't funeral home, it was I wanted to be a cop, or I wanted to be a first responder. I wanted to help people. So.
Right.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I think that's key that you said, you wanted to help people. I know that the narrative today has turned on police officers, on first responders, and it's the discussion of police brutality, the discussion of African Americans in America. How do you navigate this discussion and this discourse as we move forward as a country in trying to reconcile the reality of what we face in America?
I'll honestly tell you this, man. Being a first responder, it's something that is inside of you. It's not something that you plan to be. It's not something that someone calls you and say, "Hey, I want you to go do this." It's
Mm-hmm.
something that's inside of you. It's a ministry. Like if it's a calling, and being a black first responder, it's very in times like this, and all this craziness and with everything going on, one thing I think we've always had is just like that soul and that drive, because we've seen the struggle. We watched our grandparents, we watched our parents struggle to put us on a different level, on a different platform. So being in law enforcement and being a first responder has helped me see things from a different aspect. I get to see people at the worst times of their lives, and I get to help people in the worst times of their lives. And it's crazy. What's going on in the world is, all I can do is pray every day, and I pray I can come home and be safe out there. You just never know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, and just not in law enforcement, but also in funeral business. You see so many young, it's not just people of color. We bury every ethnicity, and just losing a lot of friends, just growing up and just burying so many young people during all of these hard times. It has really taken effect on not only me, but it's changed my personality and the way I
Mm-hmm.
do things.
Right. Um, so one of the discussions that we're seeing in regards to police officers and enforcement is that relationship between the police and people of color. Um, And the reality of certain, situations has been that people of color have been neglected, treated less than by people behind the badge. Um, how how do you consolidate that kind of sentiment that is clearly in the communities, and how are you taking part in changing that discussion and making
I
a
mean,
difference?
the difference, everything starts with you. No matter a call you get, no matter the person that you know, you have to interact with, it doesn't matter. You treat everyone with respect. That's just how I was raised,
Right.
and you treat people like you want to be treated. It's the golden rule, and, being black, you know, it and working in law enforcement, man, sometimes it gets down on you because you see everything, even people that are, not even of color, man, all lives matter, man, even through the police brutality and everything that in this country that is going on, man, it's so sad to see because you want us to all unite, and I want us all, to see us all together and be loving and encouraging, but it all starts with us as individuals. If I can't treat you right and I can't, treat myself with respect, I can't help anyone. If I'm not willing to say, hey, listen, today I'm going to treat everyone with respect. It doesn't matter if it's on a first responder level. It doesn't matter if it's I'm walking out the door of my home. I'm going to treat everybody with respect, and it's very sensitive. It's a sensitive subject right now. Everything going in COVID, um, politics, everything, police brutality. So I try to just be myself and be an outgoing person and try to put a smile on everyone's face, and I try to be, just try to be encouraging. That's the most important thing right now. Just be encouraging. So to see so many people that have lost their jobs and so many people that are suffering, and it finally it just came to a head, and it happened so fast. No, everyone just had to brace for impact.
Right.
I tell people all the time, it's like I fell asleep and I woke up in a nightmare. And some days I wish I would wake up, but I had to realize that God was telling me, hey, man, you're here. Like, there's nothing you can do. And I'm going to use you as a vessel, and I want you to do what you've always done. And that's be a great person. Be the best you can be and help others. No matter what you do in this life, do more for others than you do for yourself.
And I think that's important, especially as the conversation, shifts. It's not, just police brutality. It's the reality of racism and discrimination in our country that is faced by people of color, that is faced by black men. You're a black man, you know. Um, and one of the things that I've started to notice in the conversations is a slogan, defund the police or abolish the police. Um, I'm not a supporter of the slogan. However, I do understand certain concepts that we should stop expecting the police to address mental illness issues or homelessness. We've put too much on the plate of law enforcement where it should not necessarily be on that plate. What's your experience or your perspective on the shift of reformation and police enforcement and law enforcement?
I think a lot of people are really wanting to hold, and which is really important, hold law enforcement accountable um, for their actions. And it doesn't matter, what you're doing. It doesn't matter how long you've been with the police department. It doesn't matter how long you've been with the sheriff's officer, wherever you work. If you're a firefighter or a paramedic, it doesn't matter. Whatever. If you work as a first responder, people are going to hold you accountable for your actions. And racism is alive and well. And right now we see it. And law enforcement, not only, I mean, defunding the police and all that, saying that, it's easy to say, but also the same people that'll criticize it. When something happens, they will call on law enforcement. If somebody's breaking into your house, I promise you, We live in Texas. We have gun laws and everything else. If you don't have the need to protect yourself, you're going to call somebody that you know can protect yourself, to protect you and your family. And it would be a sad thing if something bad was happening and the first thing that came to your mind is, well, I can't trust the police, or I can't trust these people to come to me to help me because they might hurt me. And that is really deep to me. And it's going to take law enforcement, not only law enforcement, it's going to take our leaders, the people that are in charge, to see that, for better training, continuing education, and not only that, us individually, as I was saying earlier, we're going to have to take responsibility for our own actions and treating each other with respect and treating everyone with respect, and stop. It's so much. It's so much that's going on, and sometimes you're lost for words. People are like, what do you have to say? And sometimes I just don't know what to say.
And going off of that, morale. Because, and I didn't know this. I didn't know that there were different slogans, and I kept on seeing ACAB, ACAB, and I didn't know what it was. I had to Urban Dictionary it. I think it's my age, but it's basically the slogan that says all cops are bastards. How is morale with you guys when there are people who recognize that there needs to be accountability? There are people that recognizes racism and discrimination. There are good people. How is morale for those who recognize it, want to make a change, but are still being labeled under this label of being bastards or not being part of the conversation for change?
I mean, morale for us, I mean, as first responders right now, where I work in the entity that I work in it's actually made us more united. I remember talking to my partner not a couple of weeks ago, and I got seeing the protests and everything. I understood the anger. I understood the sadness. The emotions were very high. I understood it. It hurt me. Because you got to think this is something I wanted to do my whole life. I had to say, to my partner, man, I got you. I'm here for you. Not just when we come here, for briefing or whenever, we're out, doing what we do in the community. It's just, like our morale, it's caused us to be more united. It hadn't pulled us apart. One bad apple doesn't destroy a whole tree. Some fruit just doesn't meet the criteria. It doesn't, it just, and it's okay, but it doesn't destroy what that tree is. And that's just how, we've dealt with it. We've said, hey, listen, we're going to stand up for not only ourselves, but we're going to help we're the next generation of law enforcement and first responders, and we're going to make this a better place. We're gonna do our best. We're gonna help each other and help this community become better. And that's really stood out to me because we said, hey, listen, we can do this. I talked to my brother. He works with me, and we talk every night. And he says, bro, we're gonna do this. We're gonna make this. We're gonna change this stuff. And I said, man, I understand that, and that puts a smile on my face because it means the world to me, because we are the next generation, and we can make a difference just by us, just individual actions and just staying united, morale, keeping us up when we're down, and it's okay to cry, like, being in tears, man, or saying, hey, man, I had a long day at work and not wanting to talk to anyone. And sometimes I think law enforcement officers or first responders in every aspect, sometimes we get overwhelmed and we don't know who to talk to. And sometimes you have to go in that room, you have to close that door, and you have to, sometimes the tears fall and nobody ever knows. But you have to understand that, hey, I'm going to make it better, and it's going to make me better by being better, so.
So, you mentioned your brother, you mentioned yourself. Y'all are both Black men in law enforcement. The reason you joined is to make a difference in your community, to to serve, to protect. How are you navigating this conversation and discourse when we have media that's pumping a certain narrative and not recognizing that there are still good people in law enforcement who are there to make a difference and who agree there needs to be reform. There needs to be a shift in how our budget functions and how we navigate certain aspects of our society. How are you navigating it?
I mean, the media can only say so much, but it's one thing when you're not there. I tell somebody, man, if you could only be there, if you could only see things that not only that we have to see, that everyone around the world has to see, man, and it really to see the media to speak so negative. I think just the media does their job and they do it well. And it's not always positive, and sometimes they put a lot of pressure on us. And you're trying to navigate through all of the negativity, and you have people supporting you. You have your partners, you have your family, you have the people that are there for you, but also you have some people that you don't even know that really care about you and care about how you feel and what you're doing. And people always say thank you for your service. It doesn't matter if I'm assisting a motorist on the side of the highway, or if I pull up to a major accident, and it doesn't matter if doesn't matter what race they are. The biggest reward that I get is a person looking at me and being there first on scene, and somebody looking at me and saying thank you. Changing a flat tire, or or helping someone, get out of a burning vehicle. It just gives you so much. I can do it for free. I mean, it's not about, it's just me. It's just us. It's just who we are, and nothing's going to stop us, and we're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to be, we needed this. This was needed. I mean, this is a necessary thing. It's one of those things that you just know that it's for the good,
And as you mentioned that, I agree. This conversation, we don't just need the conversation, we need actions to the conversation. And one of the things you mentioned earlier was accountability. And I have other friends in law enforcement, and some mention that there's a code of silence when misbehavior occurs, or there's a perception that people are willing to turn a blind eye when someone, utilizes police brutality or something of that sort. How do we ensure accountability to fight police brutality, to fight those who are behind the badge, enacting basically violence on people? How do we fight that? And I guess, what's your perspective on how we can combat that?
I will definitely say this. It's like when you're growing up, when you see something, you say something. It doesn't matter. Law enforcement, I don't, that code of silence thing. Hey, listen, you see somebody doing something wrong, you say something. You don't like something that your partner is doing, and you know it's not right. If it's not accountability, it's not integrity, and it's not treating people with respect. It doesn't matter the ethnicity of that person. If it's a black, white, Hispanic, Asian, it doesn't matter. You treat everybody with respect. And if you're working with people that are you have to turn a blind eye, then you might be at the wrong place. You might have chosen the wrong profession, because you never turn a blind eye to the wrong thing. When someone's doing wrong, you have to stand up and you have to say, hey, listen, what you're doing right now is wrong. And we're going to all be held accountable for it. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to say, hey, I'm not okay with that. It's okay. Listen, you have to be willing. If you got to be the sacrifice and say, hey, listen, no, this is not okay. I don't agree with it. That's okay. You need to go to your superiors. If you have to go talk to them, if you have to go, whatever you have to do. There's no code of silence. There is no, well, we're going to turn a blind eye today and we're not going to say what you, listen, everyone makes mistakes, but every man is And every man, woman, child, everyone is going to be held accountable for their mistakes, and it's okay. Listen, we all make mistakes, but in our line of work, you have, it is a must that everyone be on one accord, and you hold everyone accountable for their actions, whether it's good or bad.
Right. So let's jump into, of course, the topic. George Floyd. There were multiple police officers, and one man put his knee on George's neck. It's clear there was a lack of accountability there. How do we move forward from something like that? And what kind of accountability should immediately be enacted in these kinds of situations where one person is enacting the violence and everyone else is kind of turning a blind eye?
George Floyd's death was avoidable. Saddest, one of the saddest, considered one of the saddest things in history. I'm not just saying that from a black man point of view, but to show people not being, not just law enforcement, but just anybody being standing up for somebody that's down. I can honestly say that I can't speak, and I know that, God rest his soul, they're being held accountable for their actions as they see now. But it took a nation to stand up and say, hey, listen, enough is enough. Not just for black men, not just for everybody. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. You gotta say, hey, listen, if there was more than one of you, you gotta say, hey, listen, that wasn't right. That's not okay. Accountability is throughout. And God bless his family and everyone that was affected by it. Me being a first responder, I was definitely affected by it. It's something that I did not like. I did not want to speak on. I kind of held it in to myself, and I'm glad that you brought it up, because now I can finally see it from my point of view and how I was feeling, because I had to say to myself, hey, listen, that was wrong. And I knew it was wrong. But I'm glad that our nation stood up and said, hey, listen, we're going to hold these guys or these people accountable for what they're doing. And that was the biggest step. Martin Luther King made one of those quotes, and that is, you can't always see the staircase, but if you just go ahead and just take the step, take a step, and you never know. But to hold them accountable and to bring the whole nation together, I don't, protesting is just fine. Peaceful protesting is just fine. Looting and everything else, no. When you're wrong, you don't get to do that. That's not, you don't get to tear up neighborhoods. You don't get to break down businesses, family businesses. I understand the anger, the sadness, the emotions, the fear, the impulse. But I'm so happy. I'm captivated by our nation. It showed unity, and not only that, it worldwide, other countries, and it was a game changer, is what we like to call it. Mm-hmm. It might have been a tie ball game, but this is what we call somebody. This is a game changer, and it took till 2020 for a game changer to start. We've seen it throughout history. Sometimes it takes a bad thing, a terrible nightmare to happen in order for dreams of greatness to be brought out. And I'm glad I got to speak on that. I really just hadn't wanted to speak on it. I looked at it as a very, very sad thing, man. I would tear up. I had to watch myself, because I still have to stay focused. But at the same time, man, I'm just glad that just to see the unity and people believing in one another and saying, hey, man, we're not going to stand for this any longer. And it just wasn't just black people. It was people from all races coming together saying, hey, listen, I stand with you. I believe in you. And we're going to make this world a better place.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest point. You know, it feels like there's this big division, but I don't view it as division. I think that we're finally uniting and understanding the plight of certain communities in our country. We're starting to recognize that there is a need for accountability and reform in our law enforcement. If there's no justice for one person, there isn't justice for anyone. And fortunately, we have this downtime. It's unfortunate given the circumstances of COVID, but it is almost like the right time, the time and the moment for this conversation to come up. We're not distracted by football, baseball, basketball. We're, in a time capsule that I don't know if we'll ever have this kind of opportunity to have this kind of discourse again. Do you want to say anything else before we close out on just your perspective on law enforcement, on where we're going as a country?
I would definitely say this as law enforcement, as I'll be 31 in a couple of weeks. I hate to put my age out there. And I feel myself getting older. And
we are.
We're getting older.
Now they know how old we are.
Now they know how old we are.
We've known each other over 15 years.
I do apologize. But we're the next generation. And it's up to us. We have seen and been dealt the cards, now it's time for us to play. And it's time for us to live. It's time for us to love one another, to be great, all of us, man. It's okay to help it's okay to lend out a helping hand. You see somebody falling, just go ahead and reach your hand out, and help them up. And I just want to say thank you for having me on your show, PureLunacy. Thank you for the opportunity. And I really appreciate just everything. God bless our nation. We're heading in. We are. I know it's going to take some time. Things are changing, but God bless our nation and everything, and just not only that, just the people in office. God can change anybody. I try. It doesn't matter. What they said yesterday. God is very revealing. He's very powerful. And it's gonna change a lot of things, and I think we're heading in the right direction. And love and unity is gonna take us so far.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for your perspective. For people who don't know, John Beckwith III is not only in law enforcement, not only does he have 1,000 horses, he's also a comedian. He's in the entertainment industry. His family is, very busy business folks. So thank you for just taking a little bit of your time to talk to an old friend and share your message and your perspective on everything that's going on. I think that you said the very thing that we need to hear, which is, we need accountability. We need to recognize that there is racism and discrimination, and we can only combat it with unification, reconciliation, and truly putting these words into action. It's not just about the talk. We got to walk the walk. So thank you. This is Pure Lunacy, y'all.
Thank you.